So, what's the biggest challenge that you faced during your career?
You know, I think a career is faced with challenges. You know, when one challenge is met, the next one appears. I can't really pinpoint on one. I would say that I wish that more people would come and speak to me freely before things happen. But I think that's true for most people in that position.
Let's talk a little bit more about your career. So who has had the most significant influence on your career and why?
Undoubtedly, Mr. David Finn. He is 89 years old. He started the company with his friend Bill Reuter in 1948, so it's 62 years ago. And in the early 50s, he started an ethics committee at the firm. So he has been at the center and the soul of the company's concern about doing the right thing. So he's been a mentor, he's been an example. I'm still today surprised. He still is able to surprise me in the way he reacts to events and incidents that happen at the firm.
Can you give us an example of that?
I'll give you a great story. We had hired a journalist who used to work for PR Week, a magazine, and then had gone to another PR firm, had left the magazine and went to another PR firm, and then was laid off. So he was looking for a job, and he was a good writer, and we had a good connection. So we hired him. And his role was to be a writer for the agency. Journalists are usually good writers, and he was a good writer. Mm-hmm. But things were not going very well. Either he was not looking hard enough for a job, for work, or people didn't trust him. We're not sure. But we felt responsible. We hired him. It was not really his fault. So we kept him on. And then one day he came to see my boss. I was not in that day, about something. And then at the end he said, "Oh, by the way, you'll see something in the media tomorrow, but don't worry, it's nothing." Next morning, front page of Haute Wires, which is another PR publication. Reuter Finn's Dobros, his name was Larry Dobro, settled with the SEC for insiders trading. They settled, so it was alleged that while he was at the other agency, he was working on a small bank that was going to be acquired by Wells Fargo. Called his father. "Hey, Dad." His father said, "Thank you, son." Went to the bank, opened a separate account, bought the stock of that small bank, and when the merger was announced, the stock price went up, and then he sold it. He aligned all the red flags for the SEC to find him. So the question was, what do we do? Ethics often starts with, what should we do? Mm-hmm. What should I do? So we had a meeting of the executive committee and went around the table, and the reactions were, he has to go. Reuter Finn is dedicated and takes ethics seriously. We can't have someone among our staff that did this. Others said, "I don't trust him. If he did that, maybe we should close our door when he's around." And then came David's turn. And he said no. He said, number one, it's not right to let someone go because it makes you look better. Number two, he said Larry's under a lot of stress because of what happened, the media, the legal fees. It wouldn't be right to take his job away from him now and add an extra burden. And number three, and this is what surprised me the most, he said, what about the concept of forgiveness? So I thought, wow, you're chairman of a large company that has over 500 employees and millions in billing, and you talk about the concept of forgiveness. difficult. I can tell you a story, if you want, about a mistake. We learn from our mistake. And the mistake led me to offer my resignation to Rudolfin. And it was turned down. And this is the story. It was during the Swiss bank and the Holocaust period. The government of Switzerland was a client. And there was a conference in London on Nazi gold. And during the war, as you know, the Germans looted all the central banks and took gold from those banks. And when the war was lost to them, some gold was found and redistributed to the different countries proportionally to what had been taken. And there was a commission called the Tripartite Commission that was dealing with this gold issue. But 50 years later, there were still 2 or 3 million worth of gold left undistributed. And the question was, what should we do about it? So the Minister of Foreign Affairs in London and invited governments, everyone, for this conference. And the Swiss didn't want to go. And we said, you have to go. If you're not there, if you're absent, it's not good for you. It means that you're guilty. You know, you're guilty by your absence. You have to be there. So they said, okay, what do you suggest? So we said, okay, we suggest an event at the Swiss embassy, and we're going to invite the media, and we're going to invite a historian rabbi to speak about what happened and some of the good things the Swiss had done and were doing. And they said, well, if you get 20 journalists, we'll consider it a success. So we get ready, and I recommended a very good friend of mine who's a professor at Boston University. He's also a rabbi. He's a historian, to be the speaker, and he's a great speaker. His name is Hillel Levine. So the firm was discussing him or maybe another, and they said, okay, let's go with Hillel. So we have the event. The place is packed. We have over 60 journalists, I think. The BBC, the Herald Tribune, the London Times, they were there. The event went very well, but just before the professor started to speak, he was supposed to speak for 45 minutes, and he's told, no, you can speak for 20. So they cut his time in half. So he makes his speech, very good. And then when he comes to the end, he says, and one of the lessons of all this is that it really matters where money comes from. And Switzerland should stop to allow dictators to loot their countries and then put their assets in the Swiss bank, and the Swiss bank should stop funding the drug world because we have young people dying in our streets. Okay? And you're doing this at the ambassador's residence, him in the room with the world media. So the client was not happy. And I remember he called me when I was still at the embassy, and he said, where is he? I said, he's downstairs in the lobby. He said, what is he doing? I said, he's talking to a journalist. Just get him out of there. So I called. There was a time change, so I wanted to be the first one to tell Mr. Finn what had happened. And he said, why did he say that? He said, you know, if the press doesn't pick it up, the ambassador will be fine. We'll come down and everything will be fine. Next day, front page of the newspaper, our hats to Switzerland and the Swiss government to be able to organize such a big event with a rabbi, and there was also Israel Singer, who was from the World Jewish Congress, and just not a word about his last couple sentences. But the client was still not happy. So my friend wrote an apology, a letter of apology, and I brought it to the ambassador. And I've never heard a man bark, but I think I did that time. It was like, rah! Took that letter. And then I saw, when we got back to New York, a couple of weeks later, I saw a letter from the ambassador talking about the disaster of London. And I thought, you know, I just joined the firm. I didn't bring any big clients. And now I'm about to cause them to lose an important client. So maybe I should resign. So I went to Mr. Finn. I said, sir, if my resignation helps in the relationship with the client, you have it. He said no. He said, number one, you're never responsible for what another one says. Number two, he said, you're a good man, we don't want to let you go. And he said, number three, Hillel is a good man. We don't want, he's a good man. It's just that the Swiss are difficult. So that was my resignation turned down.
What did you learn from that?
What did I learn from that? You know, it was an accident in a way. In fact, he was right. And the government has changed now its laws, and the Swiss banks have changed their laws. They're much more careful as to who comes in, where the money comes from. It's quasi impossible to open a bank account in Switzerland now, unless you can prove the origin of the money, how you got it, documents to prove it, just to make sure that the money is not dirty money. So he was right, but it was not the right time or the right place. And he really felt, my friend felt really bad. I don't think he did it intentionally.